What's going on, everybody? Jeremy Ritz here. Courage pays better than fear trading. We are in earnings season, and tomorrow is the biggest day so far in this early part of the earnings season here in July. And none other than Tesla will be reporting. And so there's been a nice move on Tesla here recently. And there's a lot of questions about what is going to happen with this stock on earnings. And so in today's Courage Pays Better Than Fear Mini, I'm going to share with you the bull case, the bear case, and what I think is going to happen come earnings tomorrow, July, what will that be? 23rd at 4 p.m. Check it out. All right, so here you can see I have Tesla on a nice clean chart, no lines, and just the candlesticks. My bull candles are white, my bear candles are black here. And we're just going to walk back through what has happened the previous times that Tesla has reported earnings, just to set the stage for what we're looking at tomorrow, okay? And right now, when we look at Tesla as a company, there's been a shift where Elon Musk is talking about how the company is really a tech company, an artificial intelligence company, not just a car company. And that shift, that change is why we have seen this push higher up to around 271 that has occurred, because investors are starting to see this company through a different lens. Now, why is that? Well, Tesla is trying to solve the problem of autonomous driving. They are working on the full self-driving component. It's supervised now, which means a human being has to oversee it, but they're trying to get it to the point where it doesn't need to be supervised. And they're working on the robo-taxi. They're working on Optimus, which is the robot that can perform tasks. Eventually, Elon sees this being part of people's everyday lives. People have a robot in their home, just like everybody has a phone these days, an iPhone. And so there's also the energy component of the business. So there's more than just the vehicles. And so that's where this narrative has shifted around Tesla. And that's why there's optimism, and we're seeing a push higher in this stock. And you could see, if we go back to the last two times we had earnings, the most recent earnings report after a big drawdown, you could see the Tesla was up around 264 there towards the end of December. And you could see before its last earnings report, it dropped $126. So it was in a significant downtrend. But on that last earnings call, the numbers weren't great. The earnings weren't great. In fact, I think they were misses. Let's click on this to see. Here we go. Yeah, so you could see it. Tesla missed earnings. They missed the revenue, but they still gapped up. And after that gap up, you could see it was just a long extended period of consolidation before it started to push higher. And a lot of that was because of this push towards autonomy and robo-taxis. So the last time they reported earnings, gap up, okay? And if we go to the time before that, in January, gap down. All right, so let's just keep going back and looking here. In October, gap down. If we go back to last July, where it had hit a high of 299.11, what happened? Gap down. The time before that, in April of 2023, what happened? Gap down. And if we go back to January prior to that, gap up. So for those of you scoring at home, counting at home, 2 out of the last 6 reports gapped up. 4 out of the last reports gapped down. And historically, if we're just looking at that recent history, Tesla has the penchant of gapping down. And so what is going to happen tomorrow when Tesla reports earnings? And here's the beautiful part of it. Nobody knows. We can theorize, but I'm going to show you the bull case, the bear case, and what I think is going to happen. And I could be completely wrong. with Tesla earnings tomorrow. So we're going to switch over from this clean chart and we're going to go over to this chart with all the lines here. All right. So I've got my beautiful moving averages here. And let me get rid of the volume profile quickly. And let's just take a look at what we have. So the first thing that I want to show everybody is this trend line dating back to really 2000, November of 2021, and it starts right here. So this upper resistance trend line. And you could see that forever that it would come up and it would retest that trend line and would get rejected. It would come up and retest that trend line and get rejected. And it tried to get close to it here in 2022. That's when we had the bear market, got rejected. We hit those crazy lows. That's where it bottomed out. And then it pushed higher. Where did it get rejected? Oh, at the mother of all trend lines. Came down, came back up into that mother of all trend lines, back up into it, rejected. And here's what I want to point out. It broke that trend line for the first time in 3 years. And that happened right here on July 3rd. So from my perspective, the fact that this long-term resistance was broken tells us that the sentiment around Tesla has now flipped and changed. Okay. And since we had this period, this extended period of consolidation, you almost have a inverted head and shoulders down here. The likelihood of this coming down and breaking through that trend line again, while I think it could happen, I think the more likely case would be potentially in between now and we're looking at this chart here. It's 3:16 on Monday, 3:16 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. Maybe we get a little bit of a sell-off tomorrow into earnings, and then we gap up. Okay. And the reason why is because when you take out a resistance that is this strong and has been around for such an extended period of time and you break above it, that just screams bullishness. Okay. And you could see after this massive move that it had up, when it broke above all these moving averages, it got dropped pretty hard here on the 11th of July. Was saved by the 10, dropped below the 10, bounced off that 200 SMA on the weekly, and then really has just been moving sideways since then. And so you had a little bit of a correction here from that push higher. If we measure that from the highs, recent highs that it has made, that's 13.9%. And so the other thing to look at is we are above every single moving average, right? If we look above here, there's nothing holding this back except the all-time high at 414.74. So it has a clear path to move higher, right? And if we look down here below, look at all the support that we have. We have the 200 SMA on the weekly. We have the mother of all trend lines. We have the 20 EMA on the daily. We have the 50 SMA on the weekly, the 50 EMA on the daily. We have the 100 SMA on the weekly. We have the 200 SMA on the daily. We have the 200 EMA on the daily. We have the 50 SMA on the daily, the 100 EMA on the daily, the 100 SMA on the daily. You get it. You get the point here. There is a ton of support down below that if bears are going to try to bring this down, they're going to have to be exceptionally strong to do that. And then also notice this. We have to pay attention to volume whenever we're looking at moves. And so when we see the selling that came in here on Tesla after it made that big run, we saw a big chunk of bearish volume come in. But notice what has happened since that bear volume has come in. The volume has decreased. Okay. So as we're seeing this thing push down, if the bears were exclusively in charge, we would see an uptick in that volume and we see the price drop lower. So we're seeing a slight bit of divergence here, which leads me to believe, and I'm revealing what my thoughts are on where this is going on earnings. I think it's more likely that we get a push higher on earnings. Now, how high can it go for the bull case? Well, let's look here. So the last earnings report, the candle closed at 144.60. And we had let's just go to the high of the next day. We had a 16% move. And let's go back to the last time that it gapped up prior to that, which was, I believe, in January of 23. Right here. Let's measure this out from the close to the high, about almost a 12% move. So let's just go in the middle there. Let's say a 14% move here. And let's just assume that we're going to close somewhere in the middle of this candle tomorrow, this 247.63. And let's bring this up 14%. 14%. That would take us to about 282.39. All right. So that would be 282.39 would be an area where. So 282.39 would be an area for a modest gap up. And if there is a lot of strength behind the move, and if the earnings call is phenomenal, I think 300 is definitely on the table. And keep in mind, too, everybody and their mother was shorting Tesla as it was under this mother of all trend lines. So shorts are going to be squeezed. We've seen a lot of that happen, but more of that can happen if this thing does gap up higher. So my target for a move higher on earnings for Tesla is going to be between 282 and 300. That's the bull case if we are to move higher. Now that's where I'm leaning. And like I said, I could be completely wrong. And I will have a position to play this, but it'll be protected. I won't lose more than I'm willing to lose. But what's the bear case? So a couple things to take into consideration here. That Tesla said that they were having the robo-taxi event August 8th. Elon pushed that back to October. Investors were not happy about that. That's where all this selling came from. And so one of the criticisms of Musk is that he overpromises and underdelivers, that he's too optimistic in his projections for how quickly things are going to happen. And so if the earnings report and his presentation that he gives following earnings has more information that says they're pushing things back, that's not going to be good for Tesla. Right? So we're going to see that. We also want to see, does Tesla beat the earnings expectation? Does it beat the revenue expectation? That's going to factor in. But more importantly, what market makers want to see is what that forward projection is. What's the growth that's coming? And let's say that they're not optimistic and hopeful on the EV sales, because there are still some people who are just looking at Tesla exclusively as an EV company. And if they really just focus in on that, and if they don't give great guidance in terms of sales for their EVs, we could see a move down, right? So all those things to keep in mind as we're watching earnings come through. So what will happen if this thing gaps down? Well, if we are looking at this through a bear lens, you could make the argument that you do have a bit of a double top here, a higher high, lower high, double top. And this 200 SMA on the weekly is going to serve as the neckline. Now, like I said earlier, there is so much support here with these moving averages that it's going to be difficult for it to drop down below that. However, if that is the case and we push down, targets for me, if I was looking short and if this were to gap down, this 50 SMA on the weekly here, this 211.42 and 205.55, this would be the area that I would be watching for a gap down. And if it does gap down, that doesn't mean that we're coming back down into the 180s. This is a buyable dip. All right, because Tesla has been beaten up for quite some time. It's not just going to continue to drop. There is more upside left in this stock. So for the bears, if this thing does come down, you're looking between 211.42 and 205.40. So between that 50 SMA on the weekly and that 200 SMA on the daily. Okay. So there's the bear and the bull case for Tesla. Like I said, my anticipation for earnings, and this is just my take. I'm playing it. I'm willing to lose what I'm going in with. You need to do the same thing. But I do think that it gaps up. And I think this is a start of a much bigger run. And also keep in mind, too, we're starting to see a rotation out of other big names in tech like Meta, Microsoft, Amazon. And you're seeing some of the big investors move their money into small caps. You're going to see some of that money come out of Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, and go into Tesla. We're seeing some of that happen now. And so that rotation that's taking place, this stock that's been beat up, that has an all-time high of 414, it's on the table. All these other stocks, Amazon, Nvidia, Microsoft, Meta, Google, they have all hit all-time highs. What company hasn't hit all-time highs yet? Tesla. And we are in a bull market. So where there is reward, there's opportunity and potential. That potential is here with Tesla. So we're going to see what happens. And that is my take here for earnings. I can't wait. It's going to be a fabulous day tomorrow. I got my Musk shirt on here. A lot of anticipation. Can't wait. And don't forget that Google's going to report earnings tomorrow as well. So both of these, Tesla, Google, they're not going to gap both of them down. It's just not going to happen. One of the two is going to pop up. I believe that that's going to be Tesla. It will drive the market. So hopefully this video was informative for you, gave you some things to think about. Drop in the comments what you think about this below. And we'll have some more earnings previews coming up here in the next couple of weeks because we are in earnings season. Such a fun time. How lucky are we as traders? We get this 4 times a year. This is great. This is great. Anyway, this is Jeremy Ritz signing off for another Courage Pays Better Than Fear Mini. Have a spectacular day. Take care.